This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
And we're live. Welcome to the Misfit Nation. We start our show off with the same message, live or recorded. If you're a veteran and you are feeling like you're leading a path towards the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. Think about what you mean to them. Think about how much they value you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Reach out to your inner circle. If you're embarrassed or feel like you'll be a burden, dial the hotline at 988 and take option 1 if you're a veteran. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, viewer, thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all your favorite podcasting apps. This will help us keep this momentum going and bring great guests to you, such as our next guest has been a practitioner and teacher of personal and spiritual development for over a decade, an avid student of mindfulness and meditation. He graduated from the Blue Mountain School of Mindfulness Arts Seminary program in 2018 with a master's in Buddhist Ministry and was ordained Osho or priest in 2019. In this capacity, he has served the past several years as an interfaith minister in prisons and hospitals. He began his studies in Buddhism and New Thought as a young adult, seeking resolutions to his own life dramas, overcoming his 20-plus year compulsive relationship with porn. He was inspired to share his journey and support other men in their path to liberation through his online Facebook support group, Porn to Purpose. He currently runs the 90-day Liberation Boot Camp as well as the 7-day Porn Abstinence Challenge. He is passionate about the community's commitment to support committed fathers and husbands in ending their toxic relationship with porn so they can reignite that passion in their relationships and be better role models to their children. So without further ado, let's welcome Matt Sinkovitz to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Matt.
Rich, thanks so much for having me, brother. Honored to be here.
It's awesome. You linked in with me. I said, I got to get this guy. A lot of people that have this issue that are, I guess, connected to that at the hip, and they need to, I guess, find a way away from it, or at least move away from it a little bit so they can have a more fruitful life. And it's great to have you here and to share your message with our audience.
Yeah, brother. Really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about yourself from as far back as you want to go, notwithstanding everything I just read off in that long intro about you there. Yeah. Not trying to embarrass you and stuff, but just tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, all good, brother. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm an interfaith chaplain and minister, and I grew up traditionally in the Christian tradition, and then kind of branched off into the Buddhist studies in my younger adult years. And I found through my work I was called to a higher level of living, and kind of recognized that pornography was a big issue for me. in my life, and it's something I needed to get resolved. So I decided to get some support around this and get coaching and got pornography resolved for myself, and began supporting and helping other men do the same work.
Wow, that's a big tasking that you've taken on, and I think I was looking at stats earlier today. I think it's 5 to 8% of all Americans have some kind of unhealthy relationship with porn at this time. About 28,000 people at any given time in America are watching some kind of pornography. When you were doing it for 20 plus years, you were involved with, I guess, watching it and stuff like that. So, how did you realize that it was time for you to pivot and make that change?
Yeah, brother. It was something, pornography addiction is something that a lot of men deal with, I think, in the secrecy and the privacy of their lives. And it's something that a lot of us deal with very much by ourselves. And I as I grew in my personal and spiritual development kind of journey, I had moments, like especially in my young adult life, when I began to recognize it was a problem. Like I began noticing I prefer, in many cases, to stay in on the computer on a Friday or Saturday night versus go out and connect with my friends. Or I was using pornography, right, and instead of connecting intimately with my partner at the time. So I began to kind of recognize like these kind of like little themes in my life that I saw as unhealthy and not a way in which I wanted to continue. Porn, for those that are listening and kind of can relate to this, also has a way of, the more we watch it, the more we consume. Just like any drug, it's like we're looking for that dopamine, and we look for more extreme genres. We need more and more of it to arouse us. And I just recognized that it was taking an unhealthy path in my life, and I had made several attempts to quit. I told myself many times I was going to quit, but was unsuccessful. And that's when I really recognized that I needed to get support around it.
When you first started you took your journey, you found your way of healing, and then you started the group. Was there any pensive reaction to you starting a group for others to come join you? Did you have to go out, reach and grab them to get them in there, or was it really easy? Hey, I'm starting this group. Come here and learn a better way.
Yeah, it was actually pretty organic, Rich. I decided whenever I decided to start helping men in this work, I decided to share my journey publicly. And so I shared it on Facebook, and a lot of people resonated. And I even shared that I was going to be starting to open up and offer some support to other men that were also struggling. And almost immediately, I had a handful of men reach out to me saying that they were looking for support. So I was able to enroll them in one of our programs and begin giving them help right away. And around the same time, I also created the Facebook community, which is called Porn to Purpose, and just began inviting men. And it's a lot of men have joined, and I have conversation every day with men that are struggling with it, Rich.
Well, that's good. I mean, finding it easy to get a group of people to look out for help. I mean, we have all kinds of addictions in our world, and this is just one of them. And you have I guess put your finger on the pulse to try to help others. What made you study Buddhism, for one, and become a Buddhist priest?
Mm-hmm. So I grew up in the Christian church, and I still have deep ties in the Christian faith, and I'm still very much a student of the teachings of Christ. And the Christianity, the idea, the version of God that I was given as a kid, it just left a lot of unanswered questions for me. And I found myself in my mid-20s, very depressed, suicidal, unhappy with myself, unhappy with my life, in a really dark place. And so I began to just look inwardly. And I remember I was working away from home at the time, and I was staying in this hotel that I was actually working at. And I went to the bookstore one night and began just looking for anything I could find in like the psychology and personal development section. I was looking for ways to understand my mind and why I was so tormented by it. And so I found meditation and mindfulness, and there's obviously Buddhist ties there. So my path into Buddhism was really a path of me seeking deeper understanding into myself and into my mind. And that's what I found Buddhism to be, is really a psychology, a philosophy for a more peaceful way of living.
Definitely, and then I think most people think of Buddhism and they think of Zen or the calming noises that they do their chants to and stuff.
Right.
We were in Korea. We climbed mountains and find Buddhist temples in like caves in the mountains. It was amazing where they
Wow.
would put them up there, and it was just so peaceful, overlooking something. If you looked down as you were climbing, you were scared to death, but as you got in there, you felt at ease with all with
Yes.
one with the world, and it was amazing.
Yes, brother.
So I can see why that path is better for someone, especially with a Christian background, to change into something else to try to find a better path and find that mindfulness and that calming and belief for you. And then of course you went into the prisons to
Yeah.
talk with the interfaith ministries. I'm sure that audience is a totally different audience, and I mean, you have all levels of people that are in prison. There's
Hmm.
major offenders down to those who are in there just for something crazy that they made a mistake one day and they
Yeah.
wound up in there.
Hmm.
So how are they as far as receptive towards you, not just as interfaith ministries, but if you were pushing or trying to promote the abstinence from porn in there?
Well, so I grew up in a very traditional Christian household, as I mentioned, and my parents were heavily involved in missions work and prison work, and they still are. And so some of my earliest memories were mission trips with my family and being in the prisons really early with my family. So I kind of, those seeds were planted in my life very early on, seeds of ministry. And I, yeah, as I was graduating seminary, I went to a 4-year seminary where I, went deep into my practice and was certified in mindfulness counseling and some of our different practices. There were some opportunities to go in as a clergy member and begin serving in the prison. So I went in there as a Buddhist, but in my role, in my capacity, I was also really very much like the interfaith guy. So I don't believe I was doing the work around pornography at the time. When I was going into the prisons, it was purely on like a ministry interfaith perspective. So I went into the prison and just began holding regular meditation and general, spiritual discussions and spiritual studies. And you know, I wasn't going in there with an agenda. There was no agenda to convert or enroll anybody to anything. I went in there and offered meditation and offered spiritual counsel, and a lot of men resonated with it that were just looking for some peace. So men from all backgrounds, including Christian, that were looking to cultivate greater levels of peace of mind and peace of spirit within that chaotic environment. So I went in and I found that I got guys all the way from the guy who didn't believe God existed at all
Wow.
to the guy who was more like hey, I'm more spiritual but not religious, kind of those guys who wanted to have a connection spiritually, but maybe they just the traditional answers weren't doing it for them. So I got a hodgepodge of all the guys who just were kind of like the overflow from the other traditions that maybe didn't feel like a fit at the time. So they were very receptive. I always went in there with just from a heart of contribution, and we did our meditation and we talked spirituality and the makings of a good life, and it was very well received in there.
Definitely. I think in the last 20 years or so, we've seen more of a shift of you don't have to just be one focus towards one religion, like say
Exactly.
Christianity or something. You can have multiple paths to your calmness and your inner self to
Yes.
find that mindfulness. And it's more accepted now than it was, say, in the 90s, 80s, 70s, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now it's more expected for someone to have a multidimensional, spiritual view of life. Do you
Yes.
see that as you go on your to talk to other people? Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I am seeing that, and I'll even say that now, very very traditional Christians who maybe haven't really explored maybe what Buddhism is might argue this point. But what I'll say is, I found that there are many people who are practicing Christians and also practice Buddhism, because the Buddhism, from my perspective, is not, we're not worshiping a deity or we're not worshiping Buddha. Again, it's this philosophy, it's a psychology for a way of a way of life, a way to create like peace from the suffering that we all deal with in the inner turmoil. So it's really like a perspective and approach to life, and I think it can work. It can be very complementary to any faith or any tradition or any religion. I don't think it has to be in conflict to it. So yeah, I am seeing that more and more people are opening up to these ideas and seeing the common themes in all the teachings.
Definitely. And we have a question from one of the listeners here. I'll pop it up here for you.
Yeah.
Jake Holland from Kentucky. how do you approach someone who you may think has a problem?
Yep, very good. Just like in the prisons, man, I'm not really out there trying to find the people with the problem. What we do, Rich, and thanks for the question, is that I create this place. I create the Porn to Purpose community on Facebook. I create a safe, warm, loving, non-judgmental environment for men to come in, and even if they're not going to engage, to be a fly on the wall. And that gives them an opportunity to come in and kind of observe the conversation. And I'm not really approaching anyone. I'm just more putting out the message, hey, we're here to help. Not everybody has a problem with porn. We even hear from some guys who say, hey, you know what, porn is something I look at once in a while. It's not a big deal for me, or me and my partner use it in our relationship, but it doesn't really do much for me, or it's not a big deal. Just like some people can drink a couple beers and it's not a problem. But some guys have, one drink and it turns into complete chaos. Same with porn. For some people, it's really unhealthy. So we just kind of create this place to say, hey, if porn's an issue for you, then here's a safe place for you to come in and begin to have this exploration and do this work. So we just exist, and we're available to support those that are needing some support.
Definitely. And Jake also came up with a follow-up. Buddha wasn't a Christian, but Jesus would have been a good Buddhist.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. I think at the end of the day, man, we're all talking about the same thing. We're all talking about a lot of the same themes. And no matter who you are, like I say my prayers regularly. And I think whether it's a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim, when we're closing our eyes and we're praying, I think we're all praying to the same God, man. That's my belief. So I do agree with you, brother. Thanks for that. Thanks for that point.
Yeah, I believe that as well. And you almost took my next question away from you. I was going to ask you, I mean, since your ministry really right now is to push away from porn to purpose,
Mm-hmm.
I believe what you're doing now could also work for other addictions. Like you mentioned, those guys who drink 1 beer, 2 beers, and they can cut it off. And then there's others that they drink 1 and it goes to 24.
Right.
I think what you're doing can probably help them as well. Do you believe that too?
Yeah, brother. I think at the end of the day, man, and again, this is like what my studies in Buddhism and mindfulness and meditation have taught me. We all have these things that we've developed coping mechanisms for. For some of us, it's food. That's been a big one for me. For some of it's drugs, it's alcohol. For a lot of us today, it's the phone and the screen and television and our computers. It's smoking, it's gambling, whatever it is. Like all of these things are surface symptoms of something deeper. So what I found in pornography is that, very often, especially as our relationship with porn develops and evolves, we're not just using porn to meet a sexual need. Sometimes that's the case, and sometimes we think that's what it is, but oftentimes it's something below the surface. It's that I recognize I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm anxious, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling insignificant and insufficient in life, and I'm looking for meaning, I'm looking for stimulation. And I think, and maybe at the core of it, I'm hurting somehow. I'm hurting, and I just want to check out and not deal with the emotions. And I think drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, it's the same thing. Under the surface, man, there's something else that we're trying to accomplish through this substance. And through our path, through our awakening, I think we can begin to recognize that these ways that we've been using to cope, which maybe for a time did work, just don't work anymore. So yeah, there's very much, I think, very similar themes in all of addiction, Rich.
I agree with you there. And another listener question here is a long one, so I'll put it up here for you.
Mm-hmm.
At what point does one know he or she has a problem with porn? Sometimes we tend to justify ourselves to the point of being blind to a problem we have.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's a great question. So I use a couple key indicators, and I'd love to share them with your audience here today, Rich. So what are some ways that we can begin to identify if porn's a problem for us? Again, some people use it kind of casually. And I think what's really important is that we have to be honest with ourselves. And just like your listener said there, sometimes we tend to justify it. So guys, what we really have to do is we have to have a willingness to be honest with ourselves and check in and really say, is this in integrity for me or not? Is this in alignment with the man or the person that I want to be or not? So I think the first thing we can begin to do, guys, is begin to take a look at the immediate kind of reactions or experiences right after porn. Like typically right after porn use, if it's something that doesn't really jive with us or it's not healthy, we'll experience feelings of low self-esteem, shame, guilt, remorse. we'll feel a sense of kind of regret. Maybe we'll tend to withdraw socially. We'll tend to withdraw sexually. We'll have like an adverse mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional reaction. So I think one thing we can begin to do is like, okay, I was feeling pretty good today. I used porn. Like, now how am I feeling the next 12 hours, the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours? Like, really gauge, what is the impact? Is my energy up or is my energy down? Do I feel better about myself or do I feel not so good about myself? Did I promise myself I wasn't going to do it again and I broke my promise to myself and here I am all over again? So that's the first way, is to really gauge, like, what is my emotional state, my energetic state, my spiritual state, my mental state after use. That's one way. Number two is porn something that you have to hide in your life? Is it something that you carry like a secretive energy about? Like a question I like to ask our guys in our community, like, how comfortable would you be right now handing over your phone to your wife, your partner, your pastor? Right? Like, how comfortable would you be if your phone opened up and the world could see your browsing history right now? Is porn something you have to sneak around with? Is something you have to hide? Is it like a secretive energy in your life? Is it something you have to lie about? I think that's another good indicator. And number three, this is a great one. I mentioned this as part of my story. Is it something you've tried to quit or told yourself you're going to quit, but you continue to go back to? You said, you know what, this is the last time I'm done. I don't like the way it makes me feel. And maybe you can go a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but you continue to kind of relapse and let yourself down. That would be another indication, an inability to control your behavior around it.
Definitely. And I think that's a great answer. Hopefully that answered the question
Yes.
very well there. I think hopefully it did. There's no rebuttals yet. So
Yep.
I think you hit the nail on the head that time. How much time do you feel like you took away from your significant other and yourself and your actual having a purpose in life when you were so down that spiral for 20 years?
Yeah, man. Again, I think it really began to impact me in my 20s and 30s, whenever I would say it was like, again, you use porn, you masturbate, and then, you're at home during the day, and then your partner gets home, and then you're less interested in sex that night, or you're feeling sexually awkward or kind of energetically off. It's those are the impacts that really affected, I think my relationship. So, it's hard to really gauge how much time was wasted, but I can say that many otherwise healthy relationships were definitely affected by it. It's kind of hard to put a number on it, but I know 2 or 3 like good relationships were affected by it, especially because whenever I began really using it more regularly was when I was a kid, there was no dial-up, there was no internet in the home. But then, internet came into the home like around the end of high school. Then high speed came. And so like right around that era, whenever high speed came into our lives and we all had phones and computers in our houses, that's when it really surged. So there was a couple key relationships in my life during that time that I know were definitely affected by my use of pornography.
I can believe that. We didn't have internet in our house at all. So
right.
I was a little before you, so we didn't have no internet till I was a working adult. So it was really different. It was magazines or nothing at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a totally different world. And now most of the young men and women they're just exposed to it immediately as soon as they get their first device.
Yes.
That first device links them to the world of darkness or whatever they want to go to. Anything they want to go to can be found on it. Maybe, whether it's true or not, it's on there. They'll be able to find it.
That's right, brother.
In your practice, not just doing the porn to purpose, do you have a place you go for temple for Buddhism too as well? Or do you host a temple for fellow practitioners?
Yeah, we have a local temple, a local temple. We have a local community here. It's called a Sangha, where we meet. Our main building was actually recently sold kind of like after COVID. So we've been regrouping. We still have a community. We meet regularly for different ceremonies, typically seasonally. And we just reestablished a local Monday evening kind of sit or meditation service here in our area. So we still have regular service and regular community. And we'll typically use different like locations in our area for physical meeting locations, I guess, until we acquire a new place.
Understood that, and COVID kind of put everyone into a curveball and
Yes.
had to do a lot of weird things for the last 2+ years, based on wherever you lived. Depending on where you lived, it was different everywhere, and each state was different with their restrictions.
That's right.
So I'm sure it was hard. If someone listening or when they listen to the pre-recorded, how could they get in contact with you, maybe to find a way to get out of their addiction or just to learn more about you and Buddhism?
Yeah, thanks very much, Rich. And so I'll say a couple places that would be easiest to reach is I mentioned the Pour Into Purpose community, which is a private men's only community on Facebook. I take a close look at all the profiles that come in there. We make sure that everybody's in there is like a legit, real profile and a real person. So we don't have people, doing anything shady. So it's like people can at least come in as much as you can on Facebook and have like vulnerable conversations and feel safe about it. So pourinitopurpose.com. Pour Into Purpose community on Facebook is a great place to do it. You can go to pourinitopurpose.com and download a free guide of the Freedom from Porn Accelerator, which is a guide that we offer as a free download for men. It's a process by which we help you actually navigate the urge or the impulse to use porn. It's a real simple tool that we provide you. And you can also, if you're not on Facebook or you don't want to do that, you can just send me an email directly to makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com.
Awesome. Matt, thanks for sharing your story with us. And what you're doing is great. And I hope you help more people than you're actually, I'm sure you're being humble with the number of people you're telling us about. I'm sure there's more than that. The numbers the statistics, excuse me, the statistics I brought up are, I think it was updated last year, 2021. I'm sure the numbers are skewed either up or down. Yeah. If 28,000 people at any given time are watching porn, there's some kind of problem with about 28,000 people every day doing that or any given time. Yeah, so brother. I'm sure hopefully they can reach out and just see if they can curb it a little bit and maybe find better ways to handle their time during it, especially when they have downtime and they're a little bored. Maybe they can build something instead of doing that.
Yep. Yeah, for sure, brother. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And thanks so much for the invitation, Rich.
No problem. I appreciate you. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight on this live chat with Matt Sinkovitz. Don't forget to visit our website, themysticnation.com. Check out all our past episodes. Of course, you can buy our swag there. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are the Misfit Nation.